Welcome back to HQ, presented by Capital One. 3 Frenchmen, 2 national champions, and a couple of G League Ignite players headline Kyle Boone's latest mock draft ahead of the 2025 draft. And in case you're wondering, yes, Bronny James is on this list, but you'll have to tune into the segment to find out where he falls. You can find that full mock draft right now on CBSSports.com. Let's bring in the man of the hour, Kyle Boone, to discuss some of the attention grabbers ahead of the upcoming draft later in June. Kyle, there's been some movements in the mock draft over the last few weeks, but the one thing standing strong is that #1 overall pick going to Alex Sarr from France, possibly another alien, as Victor Wembanyama always refers to himself as. Are there similarities that you see in their game, and what is it about Sarr that makes him the consensus #1 this year?
Yeah, not a lot of similarities, to be honest with you. I mean, Alex Sarr, he's from France. He's 7 foot tall. That's really kind of where the similarities end. They're both really good defensive anchors. Sarr is fantastic in terms of his shot blocking, his shot altering. No one quite matches Wemby. The 7'6" wingspan is just insane, and probably not someone we're going to see too often come around in the NBA. But Sarr, with the athletic ability, the defense, and then the upside on offense, I think there's a lot to like, and that's why he has remained #1 in the CBS Sports Big Board and the CBS Sports mock drafts.
He would be the 3rd European-born player to go #1 overall, and as we know, Atlanta won the lottery, so they will have that first pick. You think that they will use it on him. Now, when you think about years past in terms of the draft, there's been some splashy guys that we've attached to. If we look at just last year, for example, you had Wemby, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, the Thompson twins all going 1 through 5. The year before, it was Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith. If we look at this year's class, some have said it kind of doesn't have that same punch, or at least it kind of feels that way. What are your thoughts on the class of 2024?
Yeah, this is a really good class. I think if you're picking somewhere between 5 and end of the lottery, if you're winning the lottery this year, your top 4, you're probably not too thrilled about it. Obviously, Atlanta had a 3% chance to win the #1 pick, ended up doing that. You'd rather be picking #1 than, say, number 8. You get the first chance to kind of take a stab here. But I think the class is down and seen as kind of a down year because there are no stars or no surefire stars like there has been in years past. There's no Victor Wembanyama. In previous years, there's no Paolo Banchero or Chet Holmgren. You go back even a few more years, Anthony Edwards. And so, I think Sam Presti earlier this week, he was asked about this draft class and said basically, like, I really like this class. And there's always going to be stars who emerge from the class. I think it kind of separates the really prepared teams from the not so prepared teams. There's going to be stars that come from the top of this draft. Will it be the #1 pick? We'll wait and see. It is not impossible to think that, in 3 or 4 years, the best player to come from this draft class ends up being picked, like 6 or 9 or 12. It's just totally wide open. There's a lot of different views on the top of this class.
Yeah, looking at your mock draft, Donovan Clingan, Reed Shepherd, Dalton Connect, all guys from the college ranks who are in that mix. But it's going to be interesting to see where everyone falls. Another guy who was in the national championship mix is Zach Edey. There's been sort of some mixed reviews in terms of what kind of NBA player he's going to be. But you like him going forward as a non-lottery pick here. What is it about Zach Edey that gives you some confidence?
Yeah, it feels like, Haley, every year there's 1 or 2 players that come around that have produced at a really high level at the college level. And then there's some question marks, in terms of projecting them to the NBA level. Go back to, Jaime Jaquez last year, Brandon Podziemski last year, 2 guys who ended up going outside the lottery who produced as all rookie team performers. Jalen Brunson a few years back. Guys who I think produced at a level where, you would think just on paper they would be first-round picks and maybe lottery picks. Zach Edey absolutely checks that box. He's 7'4". He's one of the best players in college basketball each of the last 2 seasons. And, obviously there's some questions because of the size, because of how he defends in space. Exactly how that is going to translate into the NBA from the college level. But I think the more we know about Zach Edey, the more we see him play, there's a lot of confidence. I think that he's going to be a good NBA player. And I think right now people are probably skeptical of taking him inside the lottery. In a few years, I think we'll look back and say, wow, why did we not take him in the lottery?
Yeah, I'm excited to see these guys in the summer league as well, because that's when you get your first taste of what they can do. If we're peeking here at your mock draft again, Kyle, you actually have another article on CBSSports.com about players who should have, I should say, considered returning to college following the combine. A couple of names on that list included Alex Caravan from UConn, JT Toppin out of New Mexico, Coleman Hawkins from Illinois, but you did not have on that list Mark Sears or Caleb Love, who both have elected to return to school. They beat that deadline at midnight last night. Were you shocked to hear that news?
Not shocked. I think it was a good decision for both of them. Caleb Love was not a top 60 prospect on the CBS Sports big board. Mark Sears was a late second round projected. I think both of them are going back to major conference schools that are likely to be ranked somewhere in the top 15. And both will end up being one of the faces of college basketball next season. This is a different era of college basketball where you can cash in a big way on name, image, and likeness. Caleb Love is one of the most recognizable names in college basketball. He played at North Carolina to start his career. Will be at Arizona for his second season. And then Mark Sears, coming off a really good All-American caliber season at Alabama, for a team that, going into next season may end up being the preseason #1. He led Alabama to the Final Four last year. And, I don't think either of these guys would have been first-round picks. And so the idea of cashing in a big way on NIL, coming back to college, I think is a good decision for both Caleb Love and Mark Sears.
Excited to see them continue their college careers. A reminder, players have until June 16th to withdraw from the draft, but the deadline to go back to college happened last night at midnight. So if you're in the draft now, you got to stick with it or find a different path to the NBA. Kyle, in another surprising move, maybe surprising for some, Bronny James doubled down on the draft, saying he is ready. He wants to play at that next level. He's had at least 10 workout invites reported as something that he wants to do after performing well in the combine. But as our Cameron Salerno reported, Bronny only wants to visit with a couple of teams, including the Lakers and the Suns. Now, you have him going to LA, drafted at number 17. What do you like about the fit there, other than the obvious fact that his dad plays in LA?
Yeah, the obvious fact there. Bronny James connecting with his father and LeBron James in LA, I think makes a lot of sense. LeBron has for years said that he wants to play with his son, Bronny, at the NBA level. Whether that's with him or against him, we will wait and see. I think if in a vacuum, if Bronny James, his name was Joe Schmo, we would not be talking about him as a first-round prospect. He averaged just around 4 points and 2 assists per game last season for USC. But his name is Bronny James, and I think he has a ton of leverage here. He's decided he's going to stay in the NBA draft. The Phoenix Suns, the Los Angeles Lakers reportedly showing some interest here. He's had a really good pre-draft process. I think that's worth considering as well. And teams are legitimately interested. He's played his way from, projected undrafted prospect into a potential top 60 pick. And because his name is Bronny James, because his dad is LeBron James, I think there's a chance here that Bronny ends up being selected as a first-round pick.
It helps when you've got a great agent as well. Kyle Boone helping us get ready for the upcoming NBA draft. Kyle, thanks so much for hanging out with us here on HQ. So a lot of dates to keep your eye on as the basketball season sort of continues on. We've got the NBA Finals Game 1 coming up on June 6th. That's next week, if you can believe it. Then June 26th and 27th, that's where we see the NBA draft tip-off. And July 6th, free agency begins. We've already seen some movement on the coaching front. We'll see where some of these players end up as the year rolls on.